Coming up in this episode.
Can we please get off the vaccine conversation? We get it. We need to start talking about circumcision because circumcision causes SIDS, autism, alters pain sensitivity for infants. It's hijacking the mother and baby bonding mechanisms. She knows what her husband wanted to do to their son. That automatically creates an injury in their container.
You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Here for the Truth podcast. I'm Joel Rafidi. I got my co-host Yerasimos with me as always. Today, we're joined by Jenna McClelland to continue the discussion on the all-important topic of circumcision and the untold costs, psychologically, metaphysically, and biologically, that these practices carry. And it's absolutely insane, the level that it is still practiced today, even in the West, with 64% of sons being born still being subject to this practice, and an overall prevalence of 80% in the US. So this is something that we're really inspired and passionate to shed a light on, and we're very grateful to Jenna for feeling called to do this work. And we do believe that open dialogue is the path forward, and that this is definitely a key pillar that needs to fall next in the allopathic model. So whether you're new to this conversation or whether you've looked at this topic previously, I guarantee you're going to get value from this conversation. So please enjoy. After a powerful dream of witnessing a newborn circumcision, Jenna underwent spiritual awakening that revealed her soul's mission to expose the trauma of male genital mutilation and help restore the divine masculine. Through years of research, data collection, and deep study of healing modalities like soul rejuvenation, EFT, somatic sexology, and epigenetics, Jenna has worked closely with both circumcised and intact men dealing with shame, disassociation, PTSD, and trauma. She now holds sacred space for men and teaches holistic practices for healing, embodiment, and sexual sovereignty. She's also the founder of Allure, a women's intimacy brand celebrating feminine pleasure and beauty. Jenna, thanks for being here for the truth, and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, us too, absolutely. Awesome connecting briefly at Confluence earlier this year, and I'm so glad we're able to make this happen and have this conversation. One way we always like to kick off these conversations is we'd kind of like to dive a little bit deeper into you, your backstory, your personal hero's journey, some of the major rites of passage along your path that kind of led you into all the work that you're doing here today.
Yeah, definitely. My spiritual journey, I guess, was sparked when I realized for the first time that I was capable of healing chronic asthma that I had when I was 6 years old. So I spent all my life connected to the medical system, where I was told that this was something you have to manage. You're sick. You'll never get better. Here's a bunch of medication that you just need to keep taking for the rest of your life, essentially. And it was in 2018 when I decided, nothing that's happening at the doctor's office is really doing anything. I was a prominent yoga teacher at the time here in Austin, Texas. And I knew that there was something available because I was feeling it a little bit more in my body as my yoga practice had elevated my system to start breathing a little bit better. So then my mind, my consciousness caught on to perhaps there's something here that I can control and manage on my own. So when I began to look into the holistic approach with Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, with diet and change, I started to realize there was a lot of potency within this space, and I started to notice pretty immediate healing. And through this healing, I looked deeply into all the parts of myself that I noticed that I was keeping in a closet, that I didn't want to touch, that I was ashamed of, and was basically felt victimized to, which was my femininity and the natural feminine processes of menstruation, of sex, of loving my body and having a deep connection with my vulva, excuse me, and ultimately my womb. Oh my gosh. So when I started to open that door and say, okay, why am I ashamed of my feminine processes? Why do I hide the fact that I bleed monthly? And how is this preventing me from not wanting to have children? How is this preventing me from deeply connecting with a source that I know is inside of me? And why do I even want to essentially, because if I'm medically castrating myself through birth control, then essentially I'm saying that I would prefer to be a man, that being a man was so much easier than being a woman. And a lot of women are fed that growing up, the embarrassment, the shame, the repression, and it's something you don't talk about. So when I started talking about all of the things that we're not supposed to talk about, it was in 2020. And that's when the pandemic hit. And all of these answers to these questions that I had started to overflow. And then through the COVID schemes and the lies and the deception, kind of like we all started somewhere, right? The 2020 vision of where do these parts of ourselves begin to unlock, where we see that everything that we thought that we knew is actually a lie and not. And are we living in a really good country? Where are we? And I had this huge awakening of what even happens to me when I die. Like 5G towers, we have vaccines, we have government deception. So in what space am I safe? Ultimately, I had to find safety within my body and trust within my divine journey to continue on this path, speaking my truth and having these conversations with people and with women. So I ended up creating a women's sexuality brand named Elure, where I hand make and create sexual intimacy oils for women to deeply connect through alchemical practices to their yoni, to their vulva, to their pleasure, to access sexual energy, to move the energy through the body so that they can ultimately find space for self-love, for self-understanding of why we have been shamed all of our lives. So where there's taboo, I think there is great, great, great power. And I was on this mission and thought, after being a yoga teacher for so long, that now working with women was my next evolutionary step towards the next space in my life where I wanted to make a difference. So, I worked on this for a really good couple of years. I dived really deep into my body, really deep into my trauma, really deep into my relationships, and deep into the lives of women who started to notice the same parts of them were also behind closets, stifled, and repressed. So this.
I was gonna say, where do you continue? You continue.
No, you can ask me a question.
I was gonna say, like, from your experience for yourself and working with women, what do you think is the main reasons for all the repression and all the shame around all this stuff around their femininity?
Control the room, control humanity. Repress a woman and disconnect her from her intuition, her sacred sovereign body to birth children, to be a portal between life and death, and to make her fear herself. Therefore, she reaches out for outside authority and does not question and makes choices that are essentially led and operated by the dark cult. A lot of women push down their intuition due to people saying, you're too sensitive, you are too much, what you're saying is wrong. So we start to gaslight ourselves. And so through that process over time, we become completely disembodied. So a disembodied human, woman, man essentially is easier to control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it kind of became a little bit bigger of a mission that I really thought that it was. And then I was on this train since, I guess 2020 is when I started to make the yoni oil and was building this brand. And then in 2023, when it was like 2 days before I was turning 36, I had the dream where I was a witness to a newborn baby boy being circumcised in a medical setting. And it was so revolting, horrific, disgusting, and jaw-dropping that I pled with God for at least an hour that night to please never let me come back as a baby boy in my next life, if my next life is actually going to happen. And could not speak about this vivid dream for at least a week without hysterically crying and being in extreme pain. Even thinking about it today just still brings up this motherly aspect. I think that although I don't have children, it was something happened to me that night. Something was deeply activated to do everything within my power to find a way to reveal everything that I saw and felt in that dream, because that baby locked eyes with me, penetrated my soul, and told me something needs to be done through the energy exchange.
Yeah. I remember meeting you at Confluence through a mutual friend. And it was just like, well, what are you into? What do you do? I don't even know if I said, what do you do? And when you came and said that, like, you help men deal with circumcision, like, I knew we had an instant connection then, because this is a subject that's really near and dear to my heart. We've had a couple episodes on it, but from different angles. And, when that documentary, American Circumcision, like, came out, I would feel like I was like screaming from the rooftops for like several months on this issue. And then, like, what happens, at least for me, it was like, okay, I'm going on with my life, and obviously I had to navigate my own relationship to it, which I know we talked about in Austin. But yeah, just like the passion that you had for the subject, and it's not something that you hear often from people, and especially like we just met, and you had no idea like what my response would be, and you're just like, this is who I am, this is my mission. And so I just thank you for that, and thank you for being open just to even have that moment of contact then, which is led to this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
totally.
for acknowledging me in that. Yeah.
I want to go backwards a little bit to then go forward. So when you work with women and you find that they begin to unlock or reclaim some of these parts, is there a rage that's associated with that as that comes forward?
That's a really great question. I've never noticed a rage. I've just noticed like an openness and a curiosity to really look at it. And then a bunch of light bulbs go off of all these memories from their lifeline that all of a sudden start to make sense. Because specifically within my own journey, the deeper that I went into healing my relationship with my womb and to removing these memories and these sexual blockages from my vagina, like I would walk out of a car, I would walk in the grocery store, and boom, I would get these flashbacks of all these memories of things that really just started to make sense. So it's like just this unwinding and ultimately this level of empowerment. And I've seen a lot of dedication, a lot of work put forward, and just play, because it's like, now, wow, like I can actually start working on this and start enjoying myself more, given that I'm going to access more power within my throat to communicate my needs, to connect deeper into my body, into the somatics of how erotic energy can flow through my body. So I've never really seen rage, and I can't even think with my own experience that I experienced it. The only rage that I've experienced has been through diving really deep and going down the rabbit hole of circumcision. I mean, there is no turning back. And that within itself is, I don't know why I'm thinking of a word of like a funeral. Like you just have to be with it. And I lost a lot of pieces of my soul coming to terms, watching the videos, seeing the images, looking at the tools, hearing the testimony, and just being in it. There's just really nothing quite like it. I've done every single rabbit hole there is, trust me, and it's deeper and darker in circumcision and rich in history. So it goes very deep into the human psyche.
No, thank you for answering. Yeah, the reason I asked, I guess, I think in my personal experience, I guess, with women and with clients also, it seems to me like when a woman begins to realize the repression that has taken place, or the way she's been conditioned to suppress and to act against herself, there is some anger that comes up with that. But yeah, no. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
thank you for sharing that.
Why don't we start at the beginning? You've done all this research. You've looked at things from a historical standpoint. From your vantage point, why is circumcision even a thing? Like what? Like where? What's the history of it?
So circumcision is one of the oldest surgeries in the world. And if you can taper the history back and really look deeply at the energy of what circumcision is the dark at work that essentially has infiltrated religious texts and ideologies in pursuit of creating propaganda to make something as traumatic as cutting the most sensitive part of a baby's genitalia off and putting a bow on it and making it seem as if it is cleanliness. It is something that chosen people do, and that is for the benefit of man in society. So underneath, we've got, I think, about 6,000 years of, there was like carvings. They've seen some Egyptian carvings where they thought that perhaps this was one of the very first times that they started to implement circumcision as a form of royalty or hierarchical order. And it ended up infiltrating through Judaism, through a couple of medieval rabbis, one named Maimonides, and he became very prominent during the Jewish medieval times and knew exactly what circumcision was doing to the infants, knew how it breaks apart the masculine and the feminine union, the sexual dynamic, and her dissatisfaction, in addition to being sure that every time he were to have sex, he would remember the pain of his circumcision, because it was obviously never done with any form of anesthetic. So it's an extreme torture that hits, it's like the prelimbic system 2 times as much as any other thing. So we're talking about cortisol production, stress hormones that's being released into a newborn, causing deep psychological and behavioral issues and problems. So if you can traumatize an infant, shock him in infancy, which becomes essentially a form of rape, and do this not only to his body, but his soul. We have the physical body, we have the energy bodies, we have the heart body, we have all of these body systems. And so there is a deep wiring and imprint of a degradation that has been implanted in him, removing him from the archetypal divine masculine. And he becomes more capable of control and conformity.
Hope you're getting immense value out of this conversation. And just quickly wanted to interject to share a few exciting announcements that we have coming up. We've been working hard behind the scenes, co-creating a new Here for the Truth website, a more streamlined platform, and just really upgrading on all levels, we feel, in terms of the evolution of our brand and the evolution of our offers as well. So be on the lookout for us announcing the launch of our new website, which will be co-launched alongside the new iteration of Rise Above the Herd, which will now be something that is always available for your transformational benefit at all times. And on top of that, don't forget to check out our membership community, Friends of the Truth, also accessible via our website, to jump in and stay connected with an awesome group of human beings and get the chance to jump on 5 live calls a month with us and our friends. All that at hereforthetruth.com.
Is there truth to, I guess, people say that this was done to like slaves in order to make them subservient?
Mm-hmm.
And even maybe potentially soldiers in the past. I'm not sure if that was a thing, but
yeah.
Okay. I mean, feel free to talk about that if you want, but I was just curious because you hear that often when people talk about the origins of circumcision, that it was done to slaves.
Yeah, they did it to slaves to differentiate people from other people of different communities. If they had taken on, let's say, a city, and then those people that they ended up conquering, they would circumcise them and make them as slaves for the most part, is what I have heard. Now, the history, there's just like so much different types of information out there with the history. But where I usually like to stay and stand is understanding that everything that we're experiencing even to date is a spiritual war. So really kind of coming and bringing everything into that broadened, expansive perspective really allows you to not get too much into the details, is to really understand like what is ultimately happening here and why is it that this is one of the oldest surgeries in the world. And why are people still practicing it? And why has the narrative behind it shifted a multitude of times 6,000 years ago to today? I mean, it is a wheel of operation that is constantly needing to camouflage itself behind narratives so that people will be convinced to think again, the trickery that this is something that needs to happen for the benefit of man, for the benefit of religion.
Yeah. Can you explain the process of circumcision so people can understand it? Because I feel like this is something that is done behind closed doors primarily. And can you talk about if there's any differences between what's done, like, say, post-birth in a hospital in some back room versus like a ceremonial bris? Like, what are the differences? Because I really want to like break apart some of the nuance too of like maybe what is different, if there is.
Yeah, that's a great question. So let's start with Islam. So Muslim countries, I think about 90% of Muslim countries, maybe even more, circumcise their sons. And some of them do a lot of female circumcision as well. But we're going to stick with the male circumcision. They do it at the age of 7. And every family will have a different specific tradition structure in their family lineage and how they like to perform the ritual of circumcision to their sons. And usually they do it at about 7 years old. Today, I've seen like these parlors, there are these circumcision parlors where they will hold 7-year-olds down and circumcise them, and you can see them in an assembly line order. And the parents can eat the foreskin, they'll bury the foreskin, they'll do specific different types of rituals or ceremonies that again are connected to their lineage and how they would like to celebrate this covenant. And then we have a more structured look into Judaism. And Judaism is a lot more, like I said, structured. So there's like, on this day, we have X, we do Y, and we're done. So it's on the 8th day, and it is done without anesthetic intentionally. We have the mohel, and he will use his fingernail, a sharp thumb fingernail, and he will slice a cut onto the foreskin. And they will rip because the foreskin is adhered to the glands in infancy. So imagine ripping your fingernail off, using a fingernail as your knife to do it. After they have ripped and removed the skin, the mohel will put his mouth on the circumcision on the open wound, suck the blood, spit it in a goblet of wine, and pass it around to specific members of the family who have been, considered of which who are going to be drinking of the blood covenant of cutting, which is circumcision.
This is in every bris. They do it exactly the same way, is it? Or does
it depends. Some do the Brit Milah, and they won't do the Metzitza. So the Metzitza is going to be the blood sucking ceremony.
Okay.
The Brit Milah is more or less just the covenant of cutting itself. And then, there's different layers. Some will choose not to use a fingernail. Some will choose not to use their mouth to suck the blood. But usually it kind of goes in that synchronized order.
So if they're not using like a sharp fingernail, they're using like a tool.
They're using a tool, because you can buy circumcision tools, circumstance and everything on Etsy, online. Circumstance, all of the devices that you need. You don't need a medical license. Mostly anyone can learn how to circumcise. There's like online courses where I think if you have to, it says, but I haven't really looked deep into it, but you can just look online and see that there's like these little classes that you can take to learn how to circumcise children, because none of these mohels have medical licenses to practice, but it's all underneath the umbrella of, the safety of having a religious, government protection, that you can essentially do this without there being any implications or consequences.
What have you noticed in relation to the impact on the child's psyche, having this done at 7 years old, like you mentioned, is done in Muslim countries, or versus immediately post birth, or several days after? Like, is
Yeah.
there a difference? Like a child, their
Yes.
development is different than at 7 in terms of what
Yes.
they experience and what they perceive?
The younger the infant, the more exquisite the pain will be. So we'll start with that. And then we can also start with the subconscious and the conscious mind and development of the theta brainwave. So we, from utero all the way until 7, we are in theta brainwaves, which ultimately is our imprint, and it is collecting all the data to become our subconscious mind, our unconscious mind, and like who we ultimately are. So I would say, luckily, that these 7-year-olds have had time to move through a lot of that subconscious order, and making it later in life easier to heal and to comprehend and move out of the body, opposed to it being in infancy. I had a boy reach out to me a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago, and he said that when he was 10 years old, he was a preemie, but when he was 10 years old, his uncle and his father held him down against his will, didn't want to pay to go to one of these parlors for anesthetic, and ripped his foreskin off in front of his family. And so that within itself is just like, like a knife to the stomach. But then we have a newborn infant who was just living in a comfortable, warm, loving womb, who is completely innocent from harm and completely leveled up or immersed in love. Just came in from the other side, was completely in development, a fresh new soul. And within the first hours of his life is taken away from mom when he needs skin to get skin contact, is taken away from mom, laid down on a sexual torture device that straps him down so where he can't move and fidget, completely exposed, and has the most sensitive part of his body ripped off in an assembly line order. So you said it earlier, a lot of the circumcision rooms are in a completely different ward, and they're soundproof. Nurses and interns actually have reported of fainting. And I've even heard different doctors who had cameras behind the scenes, and you can hear superior doctors in the room saying, we have a chair in the corner for those that pass out and faint. But they do this assembly line order of these infants, and because they want to get it done. There is no time for anesthetic. There is no time for the numbing cream, the EMLA cream, to set in. Even considering, let's even talk for a minute about an injection of lidocaine on the most sensitive part of your body as an infant.
Yeah. Welcome
even
to Earth.
That within itself. Yeah, even that. Like I got stitches a couple of weeks ago, and it was on my left pinky finger, and he had to create a full U shape at the base of my finger and still the skin all the way to a bubble, 5 different injections. That was the most painful thing. The cut didn't even hurt as bad as the lidocaine. But how long does that even take? And is a lidocaine even safe? It's not. A full dose at what it took to numb my finger would kill a baby.
I don't even I think circumcision truly exemplifies the level of mind control from the allopathic system more than anything else. Because if there wasn't a back room that was soundproofed, and this was done on a table next to where the mother's laying after giving birth, this would not continue, I don't think.
Right.
Maybe some people would still be mind controlled of just okay, this is what it has to be done. As in the case with vaccination, sometimes, people get vaccinated and their kids are screaming and they think it's for the better. But I just feel like this is different. To be strapped in, I've seen the videos and I've seen what they're put in, and it looks like a medieval torture thing. They're just strapped in this device. I didn't even know that was a thing until I went looking for it.
Yeah.
And thankfully there's something called the internet where you can pull up a visual of what this device looks like. 1, that they're put in, and 2, what's put on a baby penis in order to remove the foreskin, which also looks like some device you would see in a museum for medieval torture devices.
Yeah. Well, even before the mind control from the allopathic system, it definitely seems to be rooted in religious ideology. And you talk about the unholy alliance, I guess, between religion and allopathy. People can refer to Cult of the Medics by David Whitehead for that. So I'm curious, like, what is the percentage, if you know, of agnostic families that put their baby boys through circumcision, or is this primarily, even within the medical system, coming from religious families?
Yeah, it's a lot of both, because even some of the religious texts in specific Christianity sectors does approve of circumcision being done, and it is for cleanliness. Now, I think that today in America, it is usually done more so for cosmetic purposes, because if a man who has been cut and has no idea what really has happened, and he's completely unaware of what it did to him, because it's in the subconscious mind, right? It's very, very deep. And he's going to want his son to look just like him. So we have about 1.2 to 1.4 million babies in the United States that are being circumcised a year. But then we have other, agnostic or religious groups who don't, medically record any of these numbers. So the numbers are still even iffy, because there really is no pristine way of recording all the data.
You know what's crazy? I remember, like, in high school, like, it was the circumcised boys would think they were the cool ones, and would make fun of the, like, the non-circumcised, as if they had the advantage somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
you're the minority, especially if you're in, let's say,
I was in a Baptist school as well.
Yeah, you're in.
Yeah.
It's a narrative, and it's one of the reasons why people will choose to circumcise, because they don't want the bullying. And I actually have a feeling that if circumcision didn't exist, that I don't think bullying truly would exist, because bullying only exists from a child who has received some form of abuse, some form of frustration, and is disgruntled within his family unit. And to target our genitalia is also another perspective to add on to this whole topic. I mean, circumcision, we have sexuality, religion, medical propaganda, and social conformity. So this is one of the reasons why it's so taboo, because it has all these different facets within it that are already taboo topics. Like we have pulled the veil. We know everything about chemtrails. We know everything about vaccines. We know everything about governmental and medical deception, pharma. I mean, I could keep going. The pedo rings, like, I could keep going. But for some reason, nobody is talking about strapping infants down and, without proper anesthetic, ripping the most sensitive part of his body ripped off. And we can't talk about it. So, to add to the brainwashing, that's how deep this goes.
Yeah. Scott, keep going.
No, it's okay.
I would say what's interesting too is my wife and I went through Peter Levine's somatic experiencing program, 3-year program. My wife continued on to get the certification. I just did all the modules and training. But I remember bringing this up to one of the teachers, and it was like, oh, maybe I can refer you to someone who does work in it, but they wouldn't mention it directly in the curriculum. Now, they'd talk about inescapable attack, and they talk about hospital surgical trauma, but circumcision was not mentioned. And I brought it up to 2 teachers, and it was just I just got the feeling of oh yeah, okay, that happens over there. Maybe there's a specific practitioner you can talk to. And I get it. Obviously, Peter Levine is probably impacted potentially from a religious standpoint too. I don't know. But
I do feel like it's the religious component that keeps people at bay and makes people think it's too PC to go near or something like that. But it's crazy how that can just override logic, override intuition, override so much of our even in somatic experiencing, just override the purpose of the work altogether.
Yeah, well, this one specific thing. I mean, they'll talk about all the other surgical traumas and all these other things that go on, but like it's that one word that isn't specifically mentioned. And I don't know if it's also had to do with, I mean, obviously anti-Semitism exists in the world, but I feel like sometimes it's always used as the thing to like end an argument. So like you start talking about something that, is done within the Jewish community, like you're an anti-Semite. Like that,
Yeah.
an easy, just kind of like throwaway. How dare you like challenge our religion and what we do?
Yeah.
I'm not
Or
saying
con-
like, yeah,
That's what they did with conspiracy theorists. I mean, there's like no rebuttal. Oh, you must be this. It becomes this disgusting and like unintellectual response
yeah,
to you actually getting down into the information and putting your mind at bay for a moment and accessing the heart to deeply connect with other humans to say, hey, beyond all this cognitive dissonance, if you can be uncomfortable for a minute, X, Y, Z. It is so frustrating. And the amount of times I have been whiplashed by like frustration and dumbfoundedness of how is this even something that people can't wake up to? It's intentionally designed. We have something that's existed for over 6,000 years. So it's going to be sophisticated in its way of entering the human body and psyche to grip its claws into us to frame a positive, like I was saying earlier, this positive benefit when actually underneath it, it's rotten.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Religion, for the most part, at a leadership level, is very male dominated. So what role? Because my personal feeling is that the real turnaround on the circumcision front is going to come from women when women stand up, when women don't override their intuition, when women step into the Kali fire as fierce protector. So what role do women play in allowing this to carry on for so long? And what role do women play, do you believe, in the ultimate end of this ridiculousness?
I love this question. I love this question so much. There's a lot at play for women. Let's go into mom. Well, actually, let's just go into her journey and understanding her repression and everything that she has gone through. And when she ends up waking up, that Kali, that fire goddess, is a dark, like, I don't want to say the word dark, because I'm thinking about the dark feminine simultaneously too, saying that, but like, there is a huge mama bear within her.
She's a
And
force.
and when women can be degraded in their intuitive connection, then they're not really going to use this force to and apply it to help an awakening and to steward a new thought and to lead in, oh my goodness, you're wanting to take my infant from my belly, strap him down and cut him on his genitals. Absolutely not. So as soon as this is ignited within a woman, I mean, I haven't even had a child and I will move mountains.
Yeah.
Another way that women can also do this is when they heal their relationship with their yoni, when they heal their relationship with their sexuality, and they can embody the full essence of who they are in this divine vessel, then they can ultimately support men and support them in their healing. Because a lot of these men that come to me complain and share that all the women that are in their life, how they make fun of them, they emasculate them, they make fun of their penis size, they will not hold space for them to share their feelings and the inner turmoil that they have experienced from a very young age. They tell them to stop talking about it. You're obsessed, and they leave. They ghost them. And a lot of these men are like, Jenna, I don't know what to do because women are horrible and they haven't been able to truly see me. And that's because when a woman is disconnected from her genitalia, if a woman is disconnected from her sexual nature, then in what way is she going to be able to hold space for a man who is deeply hurting and impacted by such a taboo topic that no one's supposed to talk about? And also, why would anyone choose to circumcise in general? Because we are so dissociated, because we are so disembodied and cut off from the belly button down, we're not going to have deep empathy and true realization of what is really being done to these babies and how it is harming and creating societal confusion
Yeah.
and mistreatment.
Yeah. Like, it's not my intention to give men a free pass here by any means whatsoever, but like, what kind of connection are you forming with that baby for the 9 months in utero for you to just consent to this, like hours after? Like, you spent every single day connecting with this baby, hearing its heartbeat, communicating with it, talking to it, hopefully, and then it's like the baby comes out. And so I just wonder, and I'm shooting into the abyss at this point in time. Is there potentially something within the deep unconscious of women that circumcision becomes some form of retribution against man or against the patriarchy of some kind that has allowed this to perpetuate? Do you think?
Wow, that's a really deep question. I love that. I can't answer that because I've never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't, like, there's a part of me that feels that that could be true. So when you actually look at the layers of this spiritual war, so in 2023, it was a couple months after, actually 2 months later after this dream, I learned soul rejuvenation. And part of this process, the spiritual energetic healing modality, I can remove the sexual degradatory implants, tags, seals, and technology that are actually placed upon the archetypal masculine and feminine etheric body within the 12th dimensional field. So women, when they come through the gateway from womb up onto earth side, there's automatically technology that is implanted into her system and to her holographic blueprint. And a lot of these implants are for our gag orders, preventing women from speaking up. Like, let's say, why does it take so long for a female rape victim to speak about it? Sometimes it's like 10 or 20 years later, all of a sudden we find out homegirl was in an alley and raped by a football player. Or, she can also have infertility implants. She can have STD tags, and she can have actually rape tags, which means that in her energy system, she will ultimately, and unbeknownst to her, attract violation in her life. So there's a whole web of this type of technology that I've been given the process to be able to remove from the feminine, but we also have the masculine. And he also comes with his own webbing of dark magic connected to his etheric body. And one of them, and the worst one, is the SRA, the satanic ritual abuse implant of circumcision that connects him, because the blood that was drawn, the blood that was spilt from the circumcision connects him to the blood demon Moloch and ultimately ties him into false god ideology, hence his ability to believe in specific religious brainwashing tactics to say, okay, this is for the good, and what that does to his heart and how that can ultimately impact his awakening and his ability to be the protector of society, be the one who actually rises. I mean, we need men. Men are here to heal, and I cannot wait for the day that men rise up. They prove and show us that they are worthy, know and connect deeply to their specific and unique purpose, to who they are, and they get to help create this beautiful shift that we all deeply need. Now, that won't happen until we all really come to terms with what is happening here and how we are all deeply impacted by circumcision, the trauma it creates to the brain, how the amygdala is distorted, his ability to have vulnerability, because the first time he was vulnerable, what happened? He was attacked. So in what way is he going to trust a woman? Because he has that mother wound. He will never, ever not connect his circumcision to his mom. because of the implicit memory that is actually initiated during this moment in time where he gets circumcised, and his identity is not separate from mother. So dad can hand the baby over to the doctor, but he will always relate it to mom. And it deeply affects their bonding. It affects breastfeeding and his ability to look at mom in the eyes.
Yeah. Jenna, what is the actual process of consent in the hospital situation? Like when you're, if you're giving birth in a hospital, and then, very often maybe the mother isn't, like in the greatest state, they just gave birth. I don't know. And then like, how does that happen? How does the Passover happen? Are you signing something beforehand? Do they even know what they're signing? Because like, again, this is a subject that like, even like vaccines, I feel like a lot of people don't even talk about it unless they realize these are subjects that need to be talked about and discussed, even within partnership, in dialogue with one another. So it's usually like, oh, I'm pregnant. 9 months later, I give birth. And then things happen that aren't even in the awareness of a lot of parents. So
it's very autopilot. Like it's just like very robotic in this sense. Like I do this and this is how I get it done. Every hospital, every circumcision clinic is different. There is no guideline that every doctor or anything that is set in place to list all of the adverse effects, that death is even one of them. I actually have printed a couple of them. They're all different. There are no guidelines. There is no structure that is looked at to be sure that every consent form is talking about all of the things that needs to be discussed. Some are a paragraph and then there's a signature. Some are half a page and then there's a signature. You can check some things off. Oh, I see that this is only an elective surgery. Cool. Yeah, whatever. Some maybe are 2 pages, but like I cannot find anything that is like a common denominator of what these forms should look like. But a lot of parents are blindly trusting the medical industry. They're blindly trusting the husbands who are usually the ones who have been circumcised, who will fight and want circumcision for their son, because trauma begets more trauma. And this idea that we want our sons to look like us by ripping a part of their penis off is within itself like something that deeply needs to be looked at. And then you have a mother who's feeling uncomfortable, but she wants to people please. She has a gag order. She's not going to share, hey, listen, actually, we're not going to do that because everything in my body, everything within my cellular structure is giving me a no.
Is there an incentive for the hospital to push for circumcision?
Absolutely.
And is there an additional cost or a profit involved for them to add that on? Mm-hmm. And what happens to the foreskin once it's cut?
Such a good question. I love the questions you guys are asking me today. So
that's a whole conversation.
It's a whole conversation. Oh my God. So there's a huge price tag on infants' bodies, and it has to do with the foreskin. So there's been doctors that have even stated that circumcisions pay for my Mercedes-Benz. Circumcision is a huge incentive financially for doctors because we'll think about we've got 3,000 babies a day on average and what they've been able to calculate. Think about that checkbook that you can receive by doing something in an instant that you already know. So not only does he get paid, but then the hospital will get paid, and then pharma will get paid for all of these medical devices. The beauty industry will end up buying the foreskins, or specific burn units will take the foreskins because the foreskin is drenched in I like to call it the stem cell of connective tissue, which is fibroblast. And fibroblast can turn into collagen, it can turn into bone, it can turn into cartilage, it can turn into muscle tissue. So because depending on the way that it is applied, the fibroblast will morph itself into the necessary connective tissue that is being asked of it. So in terms of the beauty industry, collagen, being able for wound healing or to, kind of restructure the face, dark spots, wrinkles, whatever, and what have you. I mean, the satanic cult in Hollywood even talks about foreskin facials and how they cost upward to $600 plus per I don't want to use the word procedure, but for whatever, like a facial, like whatever it is that they want to do with it. So then not only do we have the beauty industry feeding, so this is $6 billion industry, the devices, the tools, the anesthetics, any medication. And then when we look into the sexual wellness community, this has deeply infiltrated them, because now companies are making money off of lubrication. Now, if the foreskin were intact, lubrication would not be necessary because of the engineering mechanics of the foreskin that allows for there to be lubrication on his behalf to apply in addition to the female vagina's lubrication processes. And then all these other tools for men to have more stimulation, because over time they end up losing a lot of sensation due to the keratinization of the glands of the foreskin over time, because it doesn't have its protective shield. And then let's think about all of the procedures to remediate botched circumcisions. A lot of these tools, like the Mogan clamp, is notorious for clamping off the penis or parts of the glands itself. And the glands, for those who don't know, is the head of the penis.
So, are byproducts of the foreskin the common ingredients in regularly used beauty products, or is that like a specialty thing?
It usually is pretty specialty, and like what I've known, I have seen sites list even common brands that will use it in makeup. You could even go online right now and get a vial of male foreskin, the fibroblasts inside online, like right now. Anyone can actually go online and buy it.
Wow. Pretty interesting. It ends up back on women's faces.
It's barbaric.
Crazy.
So then it ties us back into the evil that is at work. And think about, like, it's a humiliation ritual for everybody involved. The moms are completely humiliated and deceived. I can't imagine that process of actually waking up to it. That's the biggest pill she will ever swallow. And then the infant is being humiliated. And then people are thinking that this is the best, and they're going to put it on their face, and they're being humiliated because they're walking around with tortured infant baby foreskin on their face. And then impotence, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, the production of Viagra, all the pills, all the therapy, all these people are making money off the backs of infant torture.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how much of the economy is built on trauma. Like everywhere you look at it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, hey, buy this and you're going to have a better life, right?
Yeah.
Like everyone is pretty miserable in a way that they've chosen to participate in this rat race.
Yeah. You work with a lot of men right now. Like, what are the common things that you're hearing? I mean, I know you host, I think, a Sunday call for men to come together and talk about these things and how they're impacted. And I also want you to talk about, I'm sure as you've been speaking out on a lot of these things, you get those men like, I got circumcised and I'm fine. Like, which I know back in the days when I was sharing and posting, or I was on message threads, like you would see that written often. And it's just like, how do you know? Like, you don't know what you don't know.
It's insane level of denial. Insane level of denial.
Yeah.
Because I get it. I mean, I get it on some degree. I could be like, I got circumcised and I'm fine. But as someone who's done certain amount of personal development work and is into introspection and self-reflection, like, and research on circumcision to the degree that I have had, like, you can connect the dots on things that maybe haven't been ideal in your life, or how you've responded, or how you've been in relationship, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, please feel free to talk about anything related to what I just said.
Yeah. So, I originally got into circumcision and speaking up about it just to be an advocate and to essentially become an intactivist, which is part of an anti-circumcision for movement and activism group. And I thought it was just going to be, okay, collect data, put it out there for people. I love collecting data. I love researching. I'll research anything night and day. And I thought it was going to be really important and part of my mission to shed light on it and for exposure. And I decided to start interviewing a bunch of these activists in the field and just to have conversations in my way of working towards getting this information to be spread across the United States and actually around the earth too. I have a lot of people come to me from different countries, and New Zealand, I've had India, and I've had England. And I was speaking to a fellow activist, and they go out and work with, they all actually wear like white suits. They're called the bloodstained men. And they put a blood imprint representation of the bloodshed in circumcision, and they travel around the country and protest. And I was put in contact with Harry Garrimond, who is the spokesman, and a light bulb clicked when I was on the call with him and interviewing him, because I said, hey, so let's say, for example, you're out there, you have a sign, someone comes up to you and a light bulb goes off, and they actually think, wow, I was sexually assaulted as an infant, and I'm actually just registering this right now in this moment. What do you do? He was like, well, we just give him more information. I was like, okay, but like, does he just go home? Like, who is going to support him? What resources does he have? Is his family? Is his relationship? Are his parents going to support him in this? What does he do? And they said, there really isn't anything. So that's when my light bulb went off. And I said, okay, well, research. There's nobody talking about this. There's nobody doing anything about this. So I took it on my behalf to look into all the healing modalities and ways in which I could be of service and start offering this to these men. And so I ended up entering into a Reddit conversation called Circumcision Trauma. And it was, I want to kill myself. I hate my family. I'm in pain every day. No one has ever listened to me. I want to die. My circumcision hurts. I can't get an erection anymore. The demise of my relationships is all my fault because I can't deeply connect with a woman because I'm scared. I have nobody. EMDR's relationships therapists are turning me down. Therapists are telling me that I need to get over it. There is nobody out here. And so it was kind of in this space where I was like, okay, well, let me start speaking to these men. Let's see what's really happening. And I created this free community, and I started it earlier this year, like in February. And I said, listen, we need to be validated. We need each other. Let's come together. And so I just hear, I have a difficult time having sex with my partner. I love them. I don't know if I'm going to be able to have children, and they need the support. So the type of validation, even within itself, is incredibly healing. And to have that also out of isolation, specifically for men, and in with community. So in these calls, we'll usually talk about everything that we want to get off of our chest. What are the best ways to talk about circumcision to mothers, to people? And we're just constantly going through data, constantly going through ways in which we can create more word and create more light within this realm. So after working with them, I started to realize and put together a very specific type of healing program. It's about 7 sessions to 7 weeks where I work one-on-one with these men, and we do all different types of healing and discussion, where essentially I hold and channel the divine motherhood space for them. Because for many of them, let's say their mother were to come to them and say, listen, son, I am so sorry. I am now an activist. I realize I harmed you. I realized I harmed you and listened blindly to these doctors and betrayed you. Like, I want to do everything that I can to remediate this trauma and to do it together. A lot of these men will not take it. It is too painful because it happens at the origin of the time in which they were brought to this earth. So unfortunately, there is a dynamic in which the physical mother in the 3D cannot hold the motherhood energy to offer him healing, he has to go to a primordial source of connection to where he came from, that Shakti energy. And essentially within these programs, I hold and channel the motherhood energy and space for him to offer healing, energy healing, soul rejuvenation. We'll get really specific about erotic embodiment. How are you treating your body? Are you disembodied? Are you connected? What are the issues that you're having in the bedroom? Scar tissue remediation, which I will teach about how to apply specific palpitations and massages to soften the keratinization, the callousness that happens around the glands of the penis, and how to soften and create more malleability. There's a lot of resources for foreskin restoration. I mean, it's pretty comprehensive.
That's a whole process, though. Like,
yes, yeah.
Like you have to be so committed, like every day. I mean, I think I saw one device. It's like you're like attaching it to your glands or penis, and then like having to wear it like multiple hours every single day. Like, I mean, unless you're really committed, I think a lot of people maybe are just like, I don't have time for that. But again, I guess it depends to what degree you want shift and change, like anything else in your life.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I mean, I know some men, it's taken 5 years. I know some that have just started embarking on their journey maybe like a year ago. I know some men that just from their own healing process and recognition and really looking at what within them needs to be healed in their relationship with self and their sexuality, they've even shared that they've seen a part of their foreskin start to grow back itself just from intention and just from their own emotional and spiritual healing on the matter, which is kind of, it sounds very like avant-garde, but I do believe on some level that there is a dormant healing capacity within us that I'm not saying I have recognition to this yet at all, but there is the holographic blueprint of the masculine body. And so although in the 3D realm, the foreskin has been removed, we still have the essence of the foreskin available within his blueprint. So I do believe on some level, and again, this sounds like very out there, but there are dormant healing capabilities that through intention and through some hands, cock, holding, and love that the foreskin will generate on some level. But that needs to happen after the heart has mended, because then I've seen a lot of men who will abuse their penis because they want it to grow. They'll be, really, they'll apply a lot of force, and blood stagnation, more numbing and bruising can actually outcome from that type of treatment when you're kind of wanting to force it through that resistance.
Yeah.
What kind of, I guess, changes have you seen in men that have come to you and have sincerely and intentionally kind of done this work? What kind of shifts have they experienced?
There is a lot of confidence. There is the recognition of, where they know that they can be. A lot of them don't really, in the beginning, it's hard for them to conceptualize what their life would look like without having this trauma. So being able to realize a lot of his desires and really coming into that divine restoration and trusting his body and being more open and heart available for deeper types of relationships and his ability to speak. It's just this really beautiful phenomenon that you get to see that shifts in ultimately his spirit, and his relationships get better. And I see him making more strides at work or leaving specific jobs due to now being able to realize power to create what he ultimately wants to create.
Mm-hmm. It's probably the case that men who have not been circumcised and are intact, they probably take for granted and don't really realize how lucky they are. What would you say to men who are intact in terms of what they got away from?
So a lot of intact men also suffer from circumcision trauma because of the bullying and the way that society shames his foreskin. So they grow up thinking it's shameful, it's dirty, and they will retract and pull the foreskin back in the locker room and try to retain it and keep it there so that nobody will even really see. So a lot of intact men actually come to me because they need that heart healing and because they want to learn how to love their body again after always been told that a part of themselves essentially is dirty and gross. Like a really good friend of mine was like, imagine like I look at my penis and every time I think there's dirt on it because it's so disgusting and gross by how people keep portraying its disgusting nature and how ugly it is, right? So, but I usually say you are so lucky if some of them have and will get phimosis, which actually is an inflammation of the crown of the I can't think of the actual name of it right now. What's the top? It's just the opening of the foreskin itself. The very top of it has a specific name that I, for some reason, I'm not able to think of. That will start to inflame and it will trap. So anytime he has an erection, it will kind of break a little bit because the skin gets really tight around the glands. And so a lot of doctors will basically be, oh, okay, let's just get it cut. Like you shouldn't have this anyway. So let's just put you under the knife. And that's a whole nother topic of how those men come to me and tell me about the deception that they went through. So I just, I asked them if they've ever had forced retraction as an infant, because forced retraction happens to like, oh my gosh, like 8 million boys, where intact boys will go to the nurse's office, a doctor. I've even heard like the nurses at schools will do this. Parents will do this because no one's educating that the glands is adhered to the foreskin is adhered to the glands up until puberty. It will slowly, you know this, it will slowly start to retract over time, but they are misinformed that they need to push and force the foreskin back to clean it because ultimately, right, it's dirty, but it's a self-cleaning mechanism. So almost 100% of phimosis cases are due to, and that actually may be extreme. Let's just say like 90%, about 90%, roughly approximately. A lot of these cases of phimosis are due to forced retraction. So if they do come to me, it's because they have phimosis and they're scared and the doctor wants to cut them so I can give them kind of information and resources and tell them, don't get it cut. You can be healed. You have all of these fibroblasts. Like you are prepared for wound healing. Get a steroid cream. And then there are some exercises that you can do. So yeah. But then like I hear their experiences with having a foreskin, because the majority of or all of them, of the intact men are very present, very connected to self, conscious, and they have such a big open heart and they do not fear being vulnerable. So you can really understand this interesting dichotomy of who the man ends up developing into because of this removal of the foreskin.
Yeah. I do also want to highlight that obviously this is a horrific initial trauma that exists, and yet there are people who are intact who then are beaten their whole childhood, and then that has its own whole case of issues. And then people who were circumcised because that's just what we do and are in loving household with loving parents, and so that impacts them as well. So there is like, it's not just like you're circumcised, you're fucked. You're not circumcised, you're all good.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, in essence, like we all have trauma. Like women also like have their stuff too. And it's all about taking, no matter your position, radical responsibility for your life and for the things that have happened to you, because that replay or constantly being the victim, even after you have been victimized, although those victimhood feelings need to be felt, the anger needs to be released, we have to take it on. And Joel, you mentioned earlier, like the hero's journey. It's just truly saying, you know what? I want my power back. And when we choose this journey within itself is already going to begin to heal you, because healing begins when we understand and when we begin to understand what's going on. And the more that we can talk about this, the more that we can share and remove the gag orders and not be fearful of the cult, because we remember who we are, we understand what's happening, and that we're all in this together. Because when I'm happy, you're happy, or when you're not happy, I'm not happy. Like the invisible threads that are connecting all of us. I mean, it's deeply impacting us in this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there like, obviously, I don't expect any change to come through, official levels or whatnot, but I'm just curious. Are there any like agencies that question this, or have there been any bill proposals, or is there anything on like an official or government level where it's like that questions this or has attempted to make a change?
Yes. We have Intact America. We have Intact Global. We have Your Whole Baby. There are a couple of threads within these umbrellas where there's little groups, the Bloodstained Men, that are coming together to speak more about circumcision. Every intactivist has like their own way and their individuality and how they like to share it. And it ends up being just really fascinating how each personality can come through. So a lot of these organizations will they'll speak with a lot of the doctors from the American Academy of Pediatrics and get more information. They're trying to push for more informed consent in hospitals. And a friend of mine named Eric Klopper is actually an attorney in Oregon. He just filed a lawsuit against the state for male genital mutilation because it's wild. It's like, why is it that there's a huge group of people who are all about female genital mutilation and it is illegal?
Yeah.
Like you can't do it.
Yeah.
But yet for boys,
okay.
It's completely okay. Now, if we were to think about the anatomical design of the clitoris and the penis, it's the same thing. The clitoris has a glans, a foreskin, a frenulum, and a shaft. And just the same thing as a boy does. And for some reason, doing any form of cutting on her is like, oh my God, how dare you? What a disgusting person you must be to think about lying a daughter down, a girl down, and doing this to her. Are you barbaric? Are you from some third world country? But yet, if you do not do it to a boy in the United States, you are trivialized, laughed at, mocked, and told you're fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nuts.
It's also crazy. Like money is being made off of my money was made off of my foreskin. I didn't see a fucking cut of that. No pun intended. But like, you know what I mean? Like what? It's just crazy to think about the money that's coming from pieces of us. Like, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah. Where'd it go? Where's our share? And why aren't they?
Like on some level, like it's like, okay, this happened to me, but like, so I wonder if would there be, probably not because of like you're signing something informed consent, but like some class action lawsuit of like all men coming together and being like, all this money is being made off of something done to us. Like,
yeah, I think as soon as you walk into the hospital and they're already having you sign all these, you're giving all of your rights away because, hospitals are deeply connected to the parasitic class.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
I'm curious. I did a brief look just now. I don't think he's ever spoken about it, but like you'd think RFK would have some kind of position on circumcision, but then again, I guess to the deep religious connection, even the Jewish connections, like he could never even fucking speak about it, which is kind of crazy under the umbrella of Make America Healthy Again, as chief medical whatever he is, and you're not gonna have a comment.
This shit that's so taboo.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That people don't touch.
Well, they're getting a lot more strict on people even talking about circumcision and using the anti-Semitic tactics to prevent and shadow ban a lot of people that are coming out. I mean, we all know how deeply some of these Israel type of influences are ultimately influencing some of the outcomes that we see in our external realm today. Yeah. And I think that because circumcision is highly revered for the ability to control, in no way, shape, or form are they going to allow the remembrance of this. However, I do feel that people are waking up. You said this earlier, Euronymous, like, I met you and in no shame and with complete confidence, Jenna, you told me this is what you do. And the more, because I've talked about it, because I've been in it, I have no shame. But the more that we can rise this fire in people and get them to see how insane this is, like personally, can we please get off the vaccine conversation? We get it.
Yeah.
We need to start talking about circumcision because circumcision causes SIDS, autism. It prevents a high pain threshold, so it alters pain sensitivity for infants. This is causing mother-baby, it's hijacking the mother and baby bonding mechanisms. And deep down in her subconscious, she knows that what her husband wanted to do to their son, that automatically creates an injury in their container.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just go on and on.
Was it Ronald Goldman? I think that's his name. He's a Jewish PhD that wrote a couple books on circumcision. Yes. I remember reading in one of his books that the medical industry, like it was like in the early 80s, they still thought babies didn't feel pain.
Yeah. Yeah, they would do open heart surgery and abdominal surgery to infants without anesthetic. And even in September 2014, they put because they don't know how to measure the pain units of circumcision to these babies. Like they have no way of measuring it. So in September 2014, they had these inhumane experiments where they laid 247 babies down to try to, without anesthetic, just to try to measure their pain.
Are these like orphan baby? Like who's volunteering?
That's a great question.
Child to go, hey, sure, you could do an experiment on pain with my newborn.
Well, parents are signing these consent forms. They're not. Think about it. They know the ignorance. They know what's happening, and you know they're just like, because they barely use it anyway. They're not even using it. And you know, even the ELMA cream blisters the foreskin and is not even supposed to be on the genitalia of an infant or a boy under 1 year old. And it will create second-degree burns. So you want to apply a cream that is not supposed to be on the new, fresh skin of a newborn, and then get a knife, put his foreskin. Well, they have to skin the foreskin off because it's adhered. And then they pull abruptly the foreskin, depending on the device, through a clamp, and they crush the foreskin off. These babies go into catatonic shock. They go unconscious. They defecate and vomit all over themselves.
They're just sleeping, Jenna.
They're just sleeping. And earlier, who was it that said something about, Joel, you were like, if parents heard more of these children's screams, they wouldn't want this to happen anymore. But you also have the parents that are there that do see and think that the baby is sleeping, but they watch their baby go unconscious. So then I've heard women say, I was there. Oh, the baby just fell asleep. Yeah, but then I hear the other stories of women that will basically go up to other pregnant women and say, I did this to my son. And I heard his cry, and he has not been the same ever since. Do not do it. It's the biggest regret of my entire life. And even considering and feeling that energy of her is devastating.
Well, it should be. It should be the biggest regret of her entire fucking life.
Yeah.
And I agree with you that, the vaccine pillar has been well and truly pushed over. It's a snowball that's collecting irreversible speed. And this has to be the next bulwark. And how can anyone talk about bodily autonomy or medical autonomy without this subject being a core fucking part of it?
Or the sexual wellness.
Even women screaming about bodily autonomy, whatever it might be. This is at the core of this conversation.
And most of the world doesn't even do it.
Right.
I've said this before. If I was born in Greece, I would still be intact. Pretty much. Unless, maybe there's a small population that doesn't in Greece. I don't know. But no, I wasn't. My parents are immigrants. And then at that point in time, you're looking in the 80s, early 80s, you're looking up, bowing down to the white coat. The doctor knows better, especially back then.
Yeah. And what makes the story so fascinating is, there's been this huge billboard of the American dream. We have the best government. We have the best medical care, in the sense of like the doctors and everything is so advanced, and, they're blindly trusting. So you're not the only man that has told me, hey, I was like a first generation. My father was intact. My family is intact, but I was chosen to, or rather my parents chose to listen to the doctor and I was cut. It's very, very sad, the layers of deception. But because we have this gold, beautiful banner of this American dream, we would never harm you.
Mm-hmm. It's just going along to get along. It's just something that we do. There's been so much conditioning around it. People don't question it. But
Right.
that said, more people are waking up to it. Numbers have decreased. Is that correct? Like in terms of like 30, 40 years ago, the percentage of babies being circumcised is not as was higher back then than it is now. Is that true?
Yes, it is true. And I have noticed, I have circumcision books all over the house. And there was a time when I just moved. And the reason why I moved is because the person I was renting the house from, he ended up selling the house. So I had to live through all of these like showings. It was horrible. But I had my circumcision books everywhere and people would come up to me because I work from home. So they would come up to me like, oh my God, I saw that book over there on your coffee table. And I just want to let you know that I didn't, and then da-da-da-da-da-da. And then like, I would end up spending all of my time with these strangers who were like in my house, like taking me away from work. And then, throughout all of this, like I've lost so much in my life. I'm newly divorced. I had a lot of personal people in my life who ostracized me and didn't want to talk to me about it. And I've been this essentially mush since September of realizing this is what I need to do, going down these rabbit holes, going deeper into the healing. And then when I went to Confluence and I was like, it's who I am, this is what I'm going to do. And the reaction that I received from everyone was absolutely profound. And it validated that I would go through that again. I would lose everything that I have lost to have that recognition and validation that I am on the right path, that really there isn't that many people out there talking and doing this, and to spearhead this, and then to meet with you guys and to be on this call and to actually get more people to talk about it. Like it's the biggest, like, I'm so grateful. I am so grateful that people are seeing it, but you have to have the spiritual eyes, and a lot of people are starting to open them.
I agree. I'm happy that you were at Confluence because that community and similar communities, they're on a similar page. These are things that are talked about to some degree, but obviously not to the degree like vaccines and other issues, but it's a must. This conversation needs to be plastered out there. People need to feel the discomfort of this, because that's where change is going to occur, you know? And this isn't to shame anyone who, again, like did this, let's say like allowed this to happen to your child, but part of reclamation and part of healing is sitting with the reality of the matter and the truth of the matter. That changes things.
You have to mourn it.
You have to mourn it. I've had conversation with friends of mine who, maybe they didn't vaccinate their kids, but like, oh, this is one thing I did, and like, fuck, I fucking regret it. And like, you have to sit with the regret. Like, we all do. Like, whatever issues, whatever things we do in our lives, like, it doesn't have to be circumcision. Like, if we've done harm to someone else or to ourselves, we have to sit with that reality and be with it in order to take the next steps in our lives and our growth and our expansion.
Yeah, 1000%. And it goes into that radical responsibility. And the more that parents do heal from this, and they heal that within their family constellation. And so it's going to offer their son more healing and support too, because that's also the problem is when he has been gaslighted all of his life and not a single family member was able to like hold, see, and be with him in this pain and was completely rejected. Like, add that to another layer of this trauma. Nobody believes me. My experiences don't exist. Who even cares about me? I'm not worthy. Might as well die.
Yeah.
Because there's an epidemic of men killing themselves. And there are plenty of people, let's not use the word plenty. There are people, I probably can say plenty. There are plenty of people that are here in this intactivist space that have killed themselves. And I know men who tell me that they know why there are school shootings, although that a lot of that is MK Ultra, but circumcision also is backed and has science backed by MK Ultra itself.
Yeah, it is a form of MK Ultra.
Yeah, it's again, the mind control, the everything that they know that it does, because it splits. It splits him.
I did some brief research. So like Muslim countries are well above 90% generally circumcision, and so is Israel. Then looking at Western countries, like 64% of babies, infants born in hospitals, according to the CDC, are still getting circumcised as of 2010. It has 80% overall prevalence in the US as well. But then along other Western countries, the next Western countries drops to 30% with Canada and Australia. So like outside of Arabia, Muslim countries, and Israel, US is nearly up there at 80%. Like why? And then the rest of the Western countries are below 50%, sitting at 30%. So it's just a point of curiosity for me why this has infiltrated the US so hard and so heavily, despite obviously being most prominent in the Arab world.
Yeah. You go.
So the United States ranks last in the industrialized nations in how they treat mothers and infants at hospitals. So we have the highest infant mortality rate in the industrialized nations. So it's because all these babies are coming in with Pitocin and drugs, and there are scare tactics and it entering into the family unit and saying that there are a lot of tests that need to be done, tons of overreach, and the way that they treat the mother and the way that it's part of the medical cult, because if you can crush an infant at infancy, then he's going to need the system more. So considering the greed that is the underpinning of a lot of what we're dealing with today, it's just feeding off of these people. But then again, we have that gold banner of we're the best. But if you actually really look in, like you were doing the due diligence of, Joel, like you will see that's not it, because a lot of these other countries laugh at us. They're like laughing. They think, I've even seen comedians like in their stand-ups just say how horrific and disgusting Americans are. And that makes me feel like shit.
It's just weird that like so many other allopathic paradigms spread all over the world. Like people will still be like, doctors, yay, scientists, yay, let's take vaccines, maybe not to the degree that the US does. And yet, again, this single procedure, all the reasons they give why we do it, which seems to change decade by decade by decade, over the years. And yet, but then that's one thing that other countries are like, that's weird. Why do you do that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, since the 1800s, when medical circumcision actually really started to gain its roots in the United States, they came up with all these different reasons for the remediation of masturbation, bedwetting, epilepsy, blindness, dumbness, tuberculosis. So like every decade had a new doctor that would come in.
Yeah.
Just like kind of like vaccines, measles, it's time for measles. Like, polio, it's time to remediate this. Like they come up with these storylines that, because people are in fear. We fear our bodies. We've been conditioned to fear our bodies. We fear our environment. So then of course I'm going to choose something because I fear death of most. And I think probably this is coming to me now. Maybe Americans are more fear of death than any other country.
We also have way more like the media has played such a bigger role in the US, like the media power, the movies, everything. Like I remember even growing up, going to Greece, there was like a few channels. There weren't that many, but like in the US growing up, there was still a shit ton of channels. So how are we being influenced just from a media standpoint?
Yeah.
And how much fear is being pumped into us?
Yeah. So US insurers, including Medicaid, cover circumcision. It's not covered and it's been defunded in other Western countries like UK, Australia, New Zealand, etc. But this is crazy. You hit on a good point. So circumcision in the US was pushed aggressively by doctors to prevent masturbation, which was falsely believed to cause disease, insanity, and moral decay. But listen to this. Why is this connection here? Influential figures like John Harvey Kellogg promoted circumcision without anesthesia to deter sexual behavior in boys. Kellogg, the creator of cornflakes, was a key influential figure in making circumcision so prevalent.
And also the graham cracker guy, the guy who creates graham crackers. He was also a part of the brainwashing too.
You only get crackers and cereal if you have no foreskin.
Yeah. Well, he had a huge perversion towards masturbation, and he wanted to remove any carnal desire from children. And he would recommend that they lie their teenage boys in puberty, because this is when they were like the most rotten. He calls them inherently rotten. And this is when you tie them down to the bed, rip off the foreskin, or sew it shut, or you would pour carbolic acid on the little girl's clitorises to essentially burn off her clitoris. So he was a pseudoscientist that was obsessed with hygiene and wanted children to obey and listen to the Bible. And he would encourage parents to secretly follow their children around the house, particularly at night, and to catch them in the act of using their foreskin. Because, I mean, they all know that the foreskin has so much of this. It's all of the erogenous sensitivity. It's the whole, to me, that's pleasure. The foreskin, along with other different parts of it, facets of that make it the foreskin, it is a pleasure what's that word? Let's just use the word. It's just a pleasure center. I couldn't think of the word.
Metropolis.
Metropolis. And the way that it is engineered and designed, and how it is double layered. And when the foreskin retracts upon entry into the vagina, that under mucosal layer actually is completely fused with Meissner's corpuscles. And those are the most sensitive nerves that we have. It is highly innervated. There are some doctors that have come out and said from the AAP that the foreskin contains up to 80,000 nerve endings. And then a lot of the studies that you will see will say, 20,000, maybe a little bit more, but people are starting to actually admit that the high potency of pleasure that exists within the foreskin, which includes its other counterparts like the ridged band, the frenulum, which is actually called the gateway to consciousness because of its ability to really help a man deeply connect to his sexual nature and his pleasure. And these certain areas where everything meets, and all of these parts that make for the functioning, the sexual function of intercourse more pleasurable also for the woman, because the foreskin will also plug into the outside of the vaginal opening, and it will keep all of the moisture inside. Because if he is cut, then the head of the penis, the glands, will start pulling out a lot of the lubrication that is created. Nor is he even offering his own lubrication to begin with. And so that's where friction, that's where different types of strokes hurt and harm women, and they can cause scar tissue inside the vaginal wall from abrasion.
Thanks, Jenna. Definitely relit a fire for me, for sure.
Oh, wow.
Around this. It's just, needs to come to the forefront, and grateful to have this conversation, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad that you felt that collie fire. But although, what is the collie, but who's the male representation of collie?
I don't even know.
I don't know.
Well, the masculine version.
Look, from a tarot perspective, we'll bring the Emperor card forward.
There we go. I like that one.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for doing this work. Obviously, this is a subject near and dear to my heart. And anything that we can do with this podcast to educate more people and to have more people experience that the blue flame of anger, around this subject, and speak about it more, and not be ashamed, and to bring it up, because that's how the change happens. It's just more people planting seeds, and then we'll see what happens. But
I want to quickly ask you a question. Do you think that in this cause and in this context, using healthy shame can be of service to pushing this? Because personally, for me, it's like that's where I want to go to. It's like, but what is wrong with you? Like, how could you even bypass and not consider this? Like, you should feel something.
well, I think you're
around
just,
that.
I think you're speaking truth, but then how the person experiences it, that's their experience. But yeah, I think a person, that's what changes behavior. You feel shame, and it's like the healthy shame of like, fuck, I did something wrong. Like, what am I going to do now?
I've never heard the term healthy shame, but I kind of like where your head's at. So for everybody, there has to be this form, like upon entry into circumcision and really understanding what this is, you have to go through an experience, and you have to feel that rage. And there will be times, just like anything, like I remember during Schmovid, where I would want to like open people's eyelids and just be like, wake the fuck up, and like have a banner and like literally just like give it to everyone. But that ends up taking so much of your energy.
Yeah.
And so it was actually, and unfortunately, harming me. And I had, in the very beginning, I had some people that were close to me. They're like, you got to coddle, you got to be really calm, you got to not be sure you're going to, hurt anyone's feelings. And that to me didn't feel authentic. So I ended up releasing this, because I had a series that I released when I'm under that kind of more thought type. And I finally was like, fuck this. And I did this video called Naked and Uncut, where I just like let Kali out and I shared everything. I don't even remember filming or what I said. And when I watched it, I was like, wow, girl, like you were really channeling some deep wisdom. And so I've been able to take some of that. And it was through that fire that allowed me to actually put more of this energy forward. Now, you have to be very careful, specifically with the moms, because a lot of moms probably at this point hate me because of how what I share, and how really this is rape and medical sexual abuse that you blindly decided to do in the trust of your doctor. And they definitely are victims in this for sure. But I just hold the light. That's all I do. This is the fact. If you're going to ask me a question, I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah. This is what it is. This is what I believe. And if that's too difficult for you, that's your own journey, but I'm going to hold the light.
Yeah, exactly.
All you can do is speak truth as consciously as possible, matter-of-factly, and then how someone responds, that's on them.
It's on them.
If someone who has the capacity to sit with, like we talked before, of like, fuck, I did something to hurt the person I care the most about. I don't want to do this again.
Yeah, it's the same thing, the same discussion we've had, like mothers who wake up to vaccines after the fact, and they've given their children a certain amount of doses, etc. Then the guilt kind of, and the remorse to sit with that, like, but like this has even more of like an irreversibility kind of component to it.
This is
like you're literally taking a piece of a body part away.
Yeah, this is compounded to like the 10th degree.
Yeah, it is.
In how she needs to like wake up to this. And what I tell like my community and all the guys, because some of them are out there, they're talking to feminists, they're in these groups, and I'll just say, you need to understand your personal boundary. Like you'll notice people will come in with this like vampire draining energy, and they want to basically take your life force from you. So as soon as you notice that you're having to prove yourself in a conversation with someone, as soon as you notice they're trying to kind of take your energy, you'll feel it, you'll know. And it's one of the hardest practices there is to just stop. And I tell them, stop arguing with this person. This person could be a bot for all you know. Like, you have to come back to yourself and know that when you are full in your life force, that's when you can be of service. We can't do it with dim lights. Now, again, if we are working with the light energy of bringing light to this issue, we have to maintain it.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Where can motivated listeners find you and connect with you?
They can look at me online on Instagram, on my YouTube channel, where I have all these interviews with professionals in the field and friends. They can also book a call with me. I can give you guys a link with that if you want a 30-minute clarity call to see, where you're at and how I can be of service to help your journey in essentially removing this trauma from your body.
What's your website? I mean, we'll have it listed, but like,
it's jennamcclelland.co.
okay. Yeah, we'll have those links down below. And yeah, anyone that feels the call, like I said earlier, she has that Sunday call. What is it? 5 p.m. Central time. You have
5
the call?
p.m. Central well, it's going to be moving to every other Sunday, but they can RSVP on my profile on Instagram.
Yeah,
because I think that's a big thing, is that a lot of people suffer in silence, and around this issue that's so taboo, and there is a lot of shame around it. To have a space to be held and to connect with other men too, because I think there needs to be brotherhood around this as well. Like where we can talk about these things with one another. In that context.
Yeah.
I know we made a joke offline, but you truly are doing the Lord's work, in my opinion. And how paradoxical is that, considering the religious component of this? And how could anyone of true godliness or reverence for God believe that this is the moral or the righteous path? Like, that just fucking blows my mind beyond belief. But anyway, looking forward to diving deeper in this further down the road. And this is definitely something that we're passionate about and want to continue speaking about. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care. And that wraps up today's journey. But hey, the truth train doesn't stop here. Every Friday, we drop little nuggets of wisdom straight to your inbox. We're talking mind-expanding ideas, heart-opening perspectives, and the kind of content that hopefully makes you go, whoa, I never thought of it that way. Our Friday drops like having coffee with that friend who always blows your mind. Except this friend shows up right on schedule and never asks to borrow money. So if you want to join our truth-seeking tribe, it's super easy. Just hop over to hereforthetruth.com/Friday and hit that subscribe button. No spam, no fluff, just pure unfiltered goodness delivered weekly. So if you're ready to make your Fridays a little more truthful, a little more inspiring, and a whole lot more awesome, your future self will thank you for this one. See you next time. And remember, we're always here for the truth, and we're always here for you.